So I want to start by welcoming everybody and to truly thank you for taking time out of your busy life to learn something about your health and, quite honestly, to show up for yourself. So as we're waiting for people to jump on, if you're rewatching this or if you're here live, just drop in the chat where you're from. Fun fact about me, I love traveling, mostly because, I love seeing new places, trying new food, but I love meeting people from different areas. So I think it's so cool that through Facebook and social media, you can connect with people from all these different countries without ever having to step foot in an airplane. So if you have jumped on or if you're watching and I can tune in after and see, just write in the chat where you are dialing in from. I'm going to give it another minute. Oh, so I see some likes coming through. So I think people are on and I just can't see it. So I will get started. Shift happens. In the next hour, we're going to kickstart some major transformations for you. Sometimes we don't know how bad we feel until we can feel the opposite of it and actually feel good. So what I'm going to teach you all on this webinar is going to take that feel-good feeling to the next level. We're blowing the cap off of it. So who's excited right now? Give me a thumbs up in the chat. Give me a like in the chat box. So look, I want this webinar to be like one of the most valuable ones that you've ever been on. I want you to walk away from it being like, dang girl, that was nuts. My mind is totally blown. Like this changes everything for me, right? So to do that, I'm not a fan of like the boring, hey, pull out your pen and paper, let's take notes, and you're really just doing it so you just don't fall asleep and like drool over your notebook. That was like my college career. So I'm going to instead start with a game of Never Have I Ever. So if any of you remember playing this growing up when we were kids, super fun game, am I right? Yeah, give me a thumbs up if you think yes. So if for those of you who never played this and you don't know how to play, basically you put up your hand, so you put up all 5 fingers, and I'll say something like, never have I ever. And whatever that statement is that I say, if you've done it, you put one of your fingers down. And typically the first person to put all 5 of their fingers down has to like chug a beer or something. That's how it's played in college. But because this is all about health and wellness, like let's just like take a swig of our water bottle or something. Some electrolytes, I don't know. Okay, so anyway, we'll get started. 5 fingers up right now. Never have I ever tried at least 3 fad diets just to quit them all and start over again the next week. Never have I ever lost weight, but then gained it all back. Never have I ever compared myself to other women's bodies. Never have I ever called myself mean names in the mirror because I didn't weigh what I wanted to weigh. And never have I ever used food as a drug to numb my emotions just to feel shame and guilt afterwards. Never have I ever lived under the impression that you had to earn all of your calories. Okay, so if you put down any of your fingers, maybe all of them, you're in the right place right now. And I can also tell you that you're absolutely not alone. Statistics actually say that 90% of women are feeling that way. So you're actually more alone if you don't feel that way. Then you're a weirdo. I'm just kidding. Now, if that doesn't totally make you cringe, let's take a peek at some of these statistics. Basically, almost all of us are struggling, yet only 5% of us are achieving. That's wild. Most of us are at war with our bodies and letting stress dictate the way that we're living our lives. Now let's take a step back and look at this. What happens if nothing ever changes? We'll be living in a world of half-expressed, unfulfilled, and straight-up frustrated women. When our bodies aren't thriving, we're not feeling excited about life, we're not feeling happy, energetic. We're just full of guilt and shame. I mean, how many of you on the chat have felt like this? If so, like, drop me a message, give me a heart, give me a thumbs up, something. But you know what? A possibility does exist for women to tap into their true feminine power and just own their bodies. We can be confident, we can have self-love, and we can have boldness, but we have to choose it for ourselves. We have to wake up to the truth. So who here wants to see that number change? Give me some love in the chat box. So these statistics are the biggest reason that I'm here giving this presentation today, because that number has to change if we really want to see women rise. You know, we want to see women making more money. We want to see more women leaders. We want to see all that. But if we're locked up in our insecurities, how on earth is that going to happen? So there's a lot behind this. So check this out. I know there's a ton of awareness right now on weight loss, but it could be too much in my opinion, because there's a lot of contradicting studies, finding fad diets, everything like that. But in my opinion, the conversation should be more around health and well-being, because these marketing messages have women measuring their self-worth against the wrong kind of scale. You know, we can't even check out at a dang grocery store without something telling us to lose weight, dress better, act more confident, fix yourself, instead of embracing ourselves. And in my opinion, that's not self-improvement, that's self-punishment. Or just putting a Band-Aid on a wound instead of leading you to authentic self-love. And that's not to say we can't dress up and have our girly days. Like, I'm all for the lashes on the weekends. But that's not where I get my source of self-love. That's like a fun thing that I like to do, you know? It's like the icing on the cake, but the cake is me, my self-love, not the other way around. So, you know, we're pressured to lose the wrong kind of weight. I think there's a strong correlation between emotional weight and physical weight, which I'll touch upon that in just a bit. Not to mention, let's just say if all of these products and programs worked in this $60 billion weight loss industry, wouldn't we all be in love with our bodies? And why would that number be growing if the problem was being solved? So when you look at these numbers, we see the $60 billion diet industry clearly thriving, clearly growing. And just because it's making money doesn't mean it's solving the problems. In fact, it's growing alongside the rates of obesity, alongside the rates of depression, and alongside the rates of disease. So on top of this, we're being completely bombarded with ads telling us we need to shrink ourselves. So there's a stat that says women report that just 3 minutes flipping through a beauty magazine, you know, sitting at the dentist, at the doctor, whatevs, checking out at the grocery store, and it makes you feel like a big bag of poop. That's not what the study said, but you know, you get the point. So can you see why I'm just so obsessed with fixing this problem? Women are all over the place feeling totally suppressed. And I think that we should all be glowing and living our lives with passion. That's just my personal opinion. But it's not going to happen if we're all just trying to numb our feelings with appetite suppressants or food for that matter. So that having been said, I'm making a bold promise to all you beautiful ladies today. If you watch this webinar to the end and implement the changes or the principles that I'm going to teach you, I can promise that you will have total food and body freedom. Sounds good, right? I hope so. Okay, so before I get into it, some of you who are new to the group might be like, why the heck is this chick all worked up right now? What's her problem? So I'll take a moment to introduce myself real quickly. I'm Cindy O'Brien, and I'm a wellness and self-love coach, and I'm the host of the Law of Attractive podcast. People like to know all about certifications these days, so credibility-wise, I'm a personal trainer, certified personal trainer, wellness coach, and a Soulciety ambassador, meaning I study subconscious reprogramming and spiritual principles. I've also had years in the corporate world working for big companies like Dell and Red Hat, which is an IBM company. So I understand the busy lifestyle. I get the hustle that a lot of you are faced with. But all of those things are really just labels about me. They don't tell you too much about me and who I truly am. And at my core, I'm a woman who's been through a lot of the same things that you might be going through if you're watching this webinar. I've definitely struggled with my weight, as you can see from this picture. This is me when I was on the left-hand side, like very underweight, if you can even tell in the photo. But I was overweight before that, but I think I burned all the photos. But I spent about 15 years of my life bouncing around in between weights, like up and down 20 pounds, losing it, gaining it, losing it, gaining it. And I've been obsessed with working out. I've been obsessed with eating. I've been obsessed with calorie counting. And I've hit slumps where I've never wanted to step foot in a gym again. So I spent years of my life really trying to find this so-called balance that health coaches like to talk about in my life, and to form a partnership with my body instead of totally hating it and wanting to disassociate from the skin that I was in. And that's what I've been able to find now, and that's what I want to teach you, which is that photo right there on the right. That's me actually a lot heavier than the photo on the left, but I can honestly say much freaking happier. So that's what I'm all about. That's what I'm trying to teach everyone, is really learning how to heal your body from the inside out. So, as any yo-yo dieter knows, as fast as we're able to lose weight, the weight can be gained back 10 times faster. So, I remember, I'll tell a personal story of like why this really resonates with me so much. I remember being in college, and my biggest claim to fame was that I could beat the boys in funneling beer, or the shotgunning beer. I was really proud of that. But naturally, I gained that like freshman 15, I don't know, maybe freshman 20, I have no idea. But I remember at the time, my boyfriend was in a frat. Yep, real proud of my frat rat days. And they were throwing a party one night, and they had their pledges. He was like the new people that they make do all the dirty work so that they have to earn their way into the frat. And they told the pledges that night, we're throwing a big party, and it's your job to keep the house clean, to make sure that the cops don't come in if they knock on the door, and also do not let in any girl who weighs over 150 pounds. And I sat there absolutely horrified, because that was the number that I was pushing at the time. So I felt completely heartbroken. And I was dual majoring in college. I was a high achieving Dean's List student, and I went from being obsessed with my career and these things were going to better my life, to being obsessed with the number on the scale and being small enough to earn that guy's respect, which ironically, I don't even remember his name. But that's where my priorities were at this young age. I decided that, you know what? Screw all my schoolwork, screw everything, I'm gonna get thin. And it really took a serious toll on my body, because I was paying my way through college, I was working 3 jobs, dual majoring, and I didn't have the energy to show up as my best self. So when I realized I couldn't do that anymore, I switched to, okay, starving myself doesn't work. So I'm exhausted, I'm starting to fail my classes, I can't do this. So I started to obsess over healthy eating. So instead of not eating, I was like, okay, I'm going to do super, super clean. I put in everything in MyFitnessPal, everything in a tracker. And either way, I was always looking down at MyFitnessPal, always looking down at labels instead of looking up and just enjoying the world and having fun. Instead of scheduling vacations or reading about new cultures like I do today, I was, obsessing over my weight and obsessing over the scale. So that's another huge thing, is I don't want people looking down at their phones in MyFitnessPal, looking down at the labels, looking down at the scales. Girls, head up, look at the world. There is so much out here around you, and you have a passion and purpose in this world. You're meant for so much more than calorie tracking. All right, so here's the one thing. One day I decided I need to find out why so many women are stuck in this uphill battle. Why the heck is it so hard for us to be at the weight we want when it all boils down to one simple thing, calorie expenditure? Supposedly we just eat less and move more, right? That's literally it. So why is it so hard for like all of America and other countries? Why are women constantly struggling with this? I know now, after doing a crap ton of research, that crash dieting is really a colossal waste of our precious time and energy. It's so obvious to me now that the kind of things that the weight loss industry is teaching us, that there's a few things that it doesn't want us to know so that we can really take our power back around food and take our power back around body image instead of following all the trends and pouring our money out to this. Because truthfully, how could the industry be effective if the rate of disease and obesity are correlating directly on the rise? Who else smells some BS? All right, so I'm going to reveal the 3 big secrets that the diet industry doesn't want you to know, okay? The spiritual gangsta is about to drop some truth bombs on you. So I'm going to let you in on a big secret. Are you ready for this one? Because it totally changed my life and it changed my clients' lives. And if you're taking notes, I encourage you to write this one down with big letters and underline it and circle it and put stars all around it and all that jazz. So if you're ready, give me a yes in the chat box. Okay, here it is. Your weight loss problem, it's not about the food. And dieting could be the very thing that's making you gain weight. Let that one sink in. Some of you are probably feeling liberated right now, and you probably wrote that one down with a big smile on your face, like, heck yes, I don't want to diet anymore. And then other people are probably like, hold up, girlfriend, how is that true? So you're trying to tell me that everything I know is a lie right now? I think my webinar host is smoking crack. But I can promise you that I'm not. I tried smoking weed once in high school and I had a panic attack. Drugs, they're not for me. So I can promise you I'm sober. Anyways, bear with me. Soon you're going to understand why the reason for your hormonal mayhem, for your cravings mayhem, is actually due to the fad diets that you thought were the cure. And it really makes sense if you just think about it. The weight loss industry is profitable when they have overweight people to sell to. If products worked in the long run, where would their customers be? So what does that tell you? These solutions might actually be part of the problem. So let's ditch all the fad diets, okay? So before I move on, can you let me know who in this group is committed to focusing on health, energy, and vitality? Because if you're not, I'm sorry, I wish I could, but I can't help you. But if you do, I promise the rest will fall into place. When you truly love your body, when you treat it with respect, you won't end up filling it with filth. And it will be because of choice and not by force, resistance, restrictions, and judgment. But I need you to tell me that you're ready to break out of that treacherous cycle. Okay, so this is what it looks like before the shift. You have this unaware mindset. You don't really have an understanding of your cravings, of what your body needs. You're kind of reliant on a meal plan or what your friends are doing or what you're told, reading labels, and you're resisting food. And you might even have some anxiety as you're eating food. You might even have shame of how you've treated your body in the past, and it's coming from a place of self-loathing. Now, when you switch it to eating for a purpose and mindful eating and paying attention to your body, getting to know your body, you have control over your cravings because you know what they mean and how to satisfy them in a healthy way. You enjoy food and you can satisfy true hunger. You know the difference between emotional hunger and physical hunger. And your body is like a loving partnership instead of something that you're just against and constantly hating. You're working together in this world. So there's actually been research that shows that people who are more on the right side of this chart, they actually have higher self-esteem, better body image, more satisfaction with life. They have more optimism and well-being, proactive coping skills, lower BMI, which I think is a bunch of BS too, higher good cholesterol, lower bad cholesterol, lower rates of emotional eating, and lower rates of disordered eating. So people are like, whoa, pump the brakes. If I look away from my meal plan, I'm going to gain 1,000 pounds, but that's actually not the case. When you adjust, life just becomes easier and you free up so much more mental capacity. So girlfriend, does that sound liberating or what? You can get all those results by actually not dieting. If that's not everyone's dream, girlfriend, I don't know what is. Okay, but I know that, I'm no dummy over here. When you tell a woman not to worry about their weight or food, we still do. Because there are weight loss messages everywhere. So we're working so hard to reprogram our subconscious mind and go with this body positivity movement, but the ads are slipping in from diet culture everywhere we turn our head. So I'm not telling you to go rogue and go run to your local donut shop and have a party, but I am saying that we don't have to be in a massive state of resistance and judgment with our bodies right now. So there are currently 9 out of 10 women on a diet at any given point in time. So don't feel frustrated with yourself right now. Just a few years ago, in that picture that I showed you before, I was jumping around from diet to diet to diet. So not one of the minorities here. I can remember scanning every single thing into MyFitnessPal and then letting my stomach grumble while I impatiently waited for the clock to tick so I could get to that said food eating time that my trainer told me. And I literally had zero trust in myself and in my body. And I put all of my faith in my trainers and in my meal plans and whatever the heck I bought offline. So looking back, I honestly kind of laugh at myself because how did I really think that a boss babe could work her way through the corporate world, pass all her classes in colleges, and do everything I was trying to do without fueling my brain? I actually thought coffee was my gasoline, and I just totally burned out my adrenals while trying to stay thin. And I can honestly tell you, I do not miss those days. But anyways, I knew something was up when I lost my period completely. And it couldn't have been because I was underweight at that point, because I definitely wasn't. Long story short, I went to my doctor and my hormones were totally out of balance, which is why my period was so irregular and which is why my body wouldn't let go of excess fat. It thought it was starving. I was in hibernation mode. And that's why every time when I ate, it went right to my hips. So my body was acting like a grizzly bear trying to prep for hibernation. So what I'm showing you right now might look a little familiar to you. It might be the cycle that you've been going through or something you've gone through in the past. So intuitive eaters, mindful eaters, purposeful eaters, whatever you want to call it, are actually less likely to be overweight because they're not obsessed with food and because they're not screwing up their craving hormones. Dieters are way more likely to binge, especially as kids. And girls who diet in their early teen years are 3 times more likely to be overweight later in life or develop an eating disorder. So, what do you choose? The answer is to work with your body and eat when you're hungry and eat with a purpose. So, what I'm going to show you is a few different steps that I use to heal my relationship with food and body. So if you're anything like me, the thought of going off a diet might have you a little bit uneasy, which I totally respect and acknowledge. Eating whatever and whenever feels great, right? But you're just like not sure how that's possible for you because you want to eat all the things. So if you've ever felt like I've tried it all and it doesn't work, I have a slow metabolism, so this can't work for me because I can't have those foods. You don't understand, Cindy. The second I look at it, it'll go to my hips. Girlfriend, I got news for you. What I'm about to teach you is actually going to increase your metabolism. So, number 1 is your food mindset. I always used to think, like, if I go off a diet, I'm going to instantly gain weight, or all these foods are bad for me. These are the only approved foods that I can eat. And then I would surround myself with judgments if I ever went off of it. My hunger and energy were completely like I wasn't going off of that. It was off of a meal plan as opposed to when my stomach was grumbling or when I felt hungry. So there is actually an area in your brain. It's called the hypothalamus. And this is what is controlling the messages that our brain is sending us. So it also regulates body weight. So I'm going to explain a little bit about how this works. I'm going to compare this to the thermostat in your house. Let's say it's a real hot summer day and you go and you set the thermostat to 60 degrees so it stays nice and cool in your house. But then someone goes and they open a window and a gust of hot air comes in and your house goes from 60 degrees up to 70. Well, what happens? The thermostat sees that the temperature is different, so it kicks on the AC. The same thing happens with your body when we start dieting. Your brain has a set point weight that is a healthy weight for you, okay? A healthy weight for you. And when we crash diet and we suddenly take away a whole bunch of food all of a sudden and we go into this calorie deficit out of nowhere to your body, it cranks up the cravings. So this is kind of what it looks like. The set point weight can actually increase over time. So you start at the bottom left, right? And that's a healthy weight for your body. And every time we do a crash diet, our body now is craving more. It needs more food because it thinks, you're in hibernation mode. Our bodies really haven't changed that much since we were cave women, okay? So if you were a cave woman and, there hadn't been a hunt in a while, your body wants to keep you alive. So it's going to increase the cravings like, hey, girlfriend, go get your spear because you need to spear down a woolly mammoth or whatever the heck they ate back then. Go hunt your woolly mammoth because you're starving. And it would make the cravings so intense so that you would get off your booty and you would go hunt down that woolly mammoth. Now, what it would also do is it would cling on to everything that you just ate because there's a famine. It doesn't know when you're eating again. So it would pack that on as weight. And now every time you crash diet, that set point weight actually increases. Keep in mind that your body doesn't understand what society standards are. Your body isn't reading the magazines in the checkout aisle. So it's just doing what it thinks is keeping you safe. Unfortunately, Cosmo cannot communicate with the hypothalamus. So set point weights can go up, but they rarely ever go down. So it's something that you have to do very gradually in a very healthy way if you ever want to actually maintain a lean physique, which is totally possible. But again, what I'm saying is it cannot be done through extreme crash diets. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, this is my personal favorite. As a life coach, just having gone through the Soulciety Ambassador program, I am absolutely obsessed with this part. So I was first introduced to intuitive or mindful eating. When I first got introduced, I personally didn't think it would work for me. So because at that point I had no trust in myself, like I said, always felt like I was spiraling out of control. And one thing that was really hard for me was managing my emotions that were actually driving me to eat. So the reason that people are emotionally eating is because they're using food as a drug. When we don't want to feel something, our body's craving a state change. And a lot of times we can get that through food. So at the time when I was starting out my journey, I felt like the emotions that drove me to eat were so strong that no set of tools or guidelines or some book was ever going to help me override the anxiety that I was feeling. Like it was just like pulsing through my veins. When I got anxiety, it literally felt like a knife. My blood was knives or needles or something. It felt like someone was sitting on my chest, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I'm supposed to be eating mindfully, but I just need this feeling to be gone right now. And like I would put pictures up on my vision board of like bikini models and everything like that, but like even that wasn't enough for me. I'm like, I get it. I wrote down my goals, but like this crying inner child of me inside of me needs some consoling, and like I think a donut's gonna do it. So that's why that message, like, that I always saw on Instagram, like, if you're not getting up at 5 a.m., like, you don't want it bad enough, those things literally gave me depression because I did want it. I wanted it so bad. But the anxiety I was feeling was crippling, and it was quite honestly overriding that. So reading those quotes just made me feel more alone, more frustrated, and more in shame with myself. But turns out, not alone in that way of feeling, like I said. So in the mid-90s, there was a study that was done by Kaiser Permanente. I might have pronounced that wrong. And they discovered a really interesting study that was dramatically increasing health issues. And actually, it wasn't just about weight gain alone, but it was actually about 7 out of 10 of the leading causes of death in the US. So what this basically said was at the risk of obesity, heart rate, lung disease, a lot of these different things, they take like 20 years of life expectancy off of people's life who had been exposed to this one thing. And based on all the health and weight loss ads that we're seeing these days, you would think that it was some kind of food or some kind of substance or laziness that's causing all of these diseases, but it's actually not. The answer is childhood trauma. Yep, it's not a substance, it's not a food, it's not a cigarette, it's childhood trauma. I'm sure some of you are thinking like, well, what qualifies as trauma though, right? Like, was it extreme abuse, like whatever? But there are actually a lot of things. So it can be a range of things that you might not bucket as trauma, like it sounds super intense, but it's just anything that feels threatening to us, leaving us with a strong negative emotional charge. So it can be something like divorce, feeling of abandonment, verbal abuse, being called names, emotional abuse, physical, sexual, neglect, substance abuse, anything like that. And it doesn't always have to be our parents or anything like that. It could be like you got bullied on the playground when you were little. Anything that's leaving you with like a serious feeling of like ouch in your heart, that's a trauma. So a lot of people think that like, sure, someone with a rough upbringing is a lot more likely to want to self-destruct. So therefore they're going to do things that are high risk, harmful to their health. But little do they know that this trauma is actually altering people's DNA. So the study that was done is called the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, and it surveyed just shy of 18,000 results about the history of exposure to childhood traumas. And for every trauma reported, the person was given a tally on their score, and then their score was compared to their health outcomes. So as it turns out, there was a direct correlation, shocker, the more trauma we experienced growing up, the worse their health was as an adult. So those with a score of 4 were 2.5 more likely to have hepatitis or depression. Those with a score of 7 or higher had triple the risk of lung cancer and 3.5 for heart disease. So, of course, the next question is probably like, why? Am I right? Okay, so these are the areas of your brain that are actually affected when you have trauma. So the nucleus accumbens, this is the pleasure and reward part of your brain that is actually affected with food addictions. The prefrontal cortex that's the part of our brain that controls impulse decisions. So let's put that with binge eating. And the amygdala is the fear response center. So another thing to be wary of is the cortisol release is higher for those people who have experienced some kind of trauma when they were young or any kind of fear. So what happens when the body releases cortisol? This is the fight or flight hormone. So again, you're a cave woman, you're going out on your hunt, you see a lion, you're like, oh crap, gotta run away from my lion. So that's what cortisol does. It makes you very tense. It heightens all of your senses. It increases your cravings because, again, it thinks you're like starving out in the wilderness. And it hangs on to the fat storage to keep you alive. Now, people who have had like serious scares, traumas, fears, anything like that when they were young, their body now releases more cortisol when something scares you, even if it's something that's not that scary. So you just have higher rates of cortisol in your body if you're not working out these past traumas or the things in your life that you just haven't healed from in your past, if that makes sense. So if you're feeling like that might be me, girlfriend, you're not alone because a lot of us are struggling with this, okay? The study told us that 67% of the population has had at least one trauma. An eighth of us have had 4 or more, and that study was done on 70% Caucasian population, so it didn't properly represent the entire country as a whole. That was just 70% Caucasian. So I just wanted to point that out. But I don't want to have this awakening leave you with like a W2F, I'm doomed feeling, because you're 100% not. And that leads me to my next big secret of changing the yo-yo dieting cycle. It's called Change Your Genes, Change Your Life. Basically what I'm telling you is you're not stuck no matter what. We hear a lot of us saying like weight loss has nothing to do with our genes, it's possible for everyone, messaging from a lot of weight loss companies. And while yes, that's true, it doesn't always have to do with your genes. It is true and it's not true. Because based on what we just learned, your health is greatly affected by your genes, which is affected by trauma. But correct, they are not stuck like that. I just think you got to do some emotional digging in order to change them. So in recent years, something called epigenetics has been proven that we can actually change our DNA by changing our state of mind and our behaviors. So just like a light switch, you can change certain cells on and off. What you eat, where you live, who you interact with, when you sleep, how much exercise you're getting, and even aging can eventually cause chemical modifications around the genes that can turn them on or off over time. So we have over 20,000 genes, and they can have tons of different combos of genes being turned on and off. So what that means is when we cater to the good ones and neglect the bad ones, we can make it work optimally for our health. So the way I like to think of it is, imagine you have like little planters outside on your back porch and you plant a whole bunch of seeds, and one of them is like a big cactus that's going to come poke you. So that would be like your bad disease cells, and another one's like a beautiful sunflower, something gorgeous. Well, let's just not water that cactus that wants to poke us. Let's just water the beautiful plants and watch those grow. It's kind of like that. That's going to be my analysis or my analogy. So theoretically, if we could map every single cause and effect in their different combos, then we could reverse the genes that don't want to help us and eliminate the bad ones while turning on the good ones. So this is a tough concept to grasp at first. If you want any resources, follow up with me. I can send you a whole bunch of books on this, because I know my little 5-minute blurb on that is not perfect, but we're going to go with that analogy. So think of the human lifespan like a really long movie. And the cells would be the actors and actresses, essentially units that make up the movie. The DNA would be the script, instructors for all the participants of the movie to perform their roles. And the DNA sequence would be the words on the script, and certain blocks of these words that instruct key actions or key events to take place, those would be the genes. So the concept of genetics would be like screenwriting. Do you follow that analogy? Give me a thumbs up or some questions in the chat box so I can answer it. So the concept of epigenetics then would be like directing. So the script can be the same, but the director can choose to eliminate or tweak certain scenes or dialogues, altering the movie for better or for worse. So that's kind of how epigenetics works. So to recap, the ways to heal your relationship with food and body image is to rethink your food mindset. We're ditching those fad diets that are actually harming our metabolism and our weight in the long run. We're going to dig deep and do some subconscious reprogramming and emotional healing so that we can get rid of those traumas and that peaked cortisol level in our body, those peaked flight or flight hormones. Like, it's basically like living your life like you're constantly scared and being chased like a lion. Like, who wants to live like that? And decide your DNA, decide on your destiny. So you don't have to take the deck of cards that you've been given. You can shuffle it up and you can change it to go the way you want it to go. So ladies, it is time to take our power back, okay? So we got two choices here. We can go to one side, which is letting the weight loss and food industry dictate the way that our life goes. If there's a beauty trend that's currently changing, like right now butts are in, cool, I like that. But you know, next year could be small butts are in, and then we all got to change our bodies again. And if we're always chasing this moving target, expecting our happiness to be on the other side of it, we'll never be happy, because the only way that that industry stays profitable is if they have us constantly chasing something different. And again, it's not I'm not preaching that it's a bad thing to want to change your body, because I have found my true source of happiness within me, and I feel truly confident and happy. And I still like curling my hair every now and again. I still like playing with fake lashes. But again, my self-love is the cake, and those things, that's the icing on the cake. It's just, you can't have icing on a cake without the cake, okay? So you can't have happiness from changing your body if you don't have that true self-love beforehand, and you don't treat your body with respect if you don't have that foundation of self-love. So the two choices: we can either let the weight loss industry decide our fate, decide our happiness, decide our state of well-being. We can keep yo-yo dieting. We can keep increasing our own set weight. We can keep being in resistance with our body, full of shame for wanting to diet and for wanting to go out and have a good night with our girlfriends. We can choose that if we want to, but the opposite of that is to choose to get to know our bodies, to love our bodies, to respect our bodies, and to eat with a purpose, which in turn speeds up our metabolism, makes us feel happier, makes us have a higher self-esteem. So personally, I went that way. If you were able to never diet again and have a body that you wanted, if you were able to get time and energy back into your life because you're not obsessed with calorie tracking and you're not always in a deficit, would that be worth it to you? And if you could be confident in your body so that you weren't always worried and feeling in this low self-esteem state of mind, would that be worth it to you? So I have one last thing to offer, if it's okay. I can take a moment to show you the next steps to get there if you'd like that. Is that all right with everybody who's on? Let me know. Drop me a chat. All right, I'm seeing a few yeses coming through in the chat box. A few, yeah, girl. Okay. What is next for you, girlfriend? If you've decided, based on all that information, like, yep, I'm done with my fad diets, they are exhausting, I have something for you. This is the path that I decided to go down. This is the way that I healed my relationship with food and body step by step, all of the different tactics I used. So I created a program. It's called the Soulful Method. The Soulful Method is an 8-week live course that's helping women stop the emotional eating and finally have food freedom. Now, it's called Soulful because this is a soul-based program. And essentially what we're doing is we're putting an end to that emotional eating by feeling through our emotions, by getting our fulfillment from inside of ourselves, from finally feeling like, where is that lack coming from? What is driving me to be emotionally eating? What am I trying to mask? What am I trying to hide? So for anyone who just feels like they're meant for more in life, to feel like something's missing, this is all about creating balance in your life, finding out, why are you feeling unhappy? Why are you feeling out of balance? Why do you feel like you need to use food as a drug? And being able to cultivate your self-love from inside of yourself. The longer we assign our happiness outside of ourselves is the amount of time that we're going to feel disempowered. If we think we will only be happy if we look a certain way, if we can't leave our house until we feel like absolutely perfect, or maybe we never feel pretty. It's all about creating self-love from the inside out and radiating your beauty from there. So let me tell you how it works. So the first thing that you'll get in the Soulful Method is a guided course of meditations and self-healing. This is all stuff you can do in your own time whenever you want. I personally listen to these meditations like when I got up in the morning so I could like wake up slow and easy into my day and start the day on a good note. And then again at nighttime before I went to bed. So it really didn't take any additional time out of my day. And what these meditations do is there's one on emotional eating, overeating, comparisons, forgiveness, body confidence, mindful eating, self-sabotage, limiting beliefs, and transformation. And what it does is it helps you heal, let go of the past beliefs that you have in your subconscious mind and reprogram it with ones that have you craving healthy foods, that have you not wanting to overeat, not wanting to fill your body with processed foods and chemicals. you'll actually just naturally, without doing any other work, start craving a healthier lifestyle just by reprogramming your subconscious mind. And to add to the effectiveness of meditation, I used certain music. It's similar to sound bowls or sound healing, and it's music that's in a certain frequency that helps you release trapped emotions. So these are super crazy effective, and they're each about like 10 to 20 minutes long. So it's pretty simple. You can start healing without even really having to do anything. The next thing I add into the Soulful method is something called the Beauty Code, and this is a book that I wrote. It teaches you how to eat purposefully, not restrictively. So basically everything that I preached to you today. How to master your metabolism without ever having to go on a diet. How to track your progress, not your perfection. Micro versus macronutrients explained, and my favorite recipes. The next thing on there, this is my work of art, my most proudest production, and it is a food freedom masterclass. So this is something that we will do together live on Zoom calls, kind of like this Facebook call, but I'll be able to actually see your beautiful faces. And we're going to go over identity shifting. So getting super freaking crystal clear on what your goals are and what your dream life is. Figuring out where you are now, where you want to be, and how we can close that gap for you. What your relationship is to food, how you got this way. There's a lot of different really common food personalities that have to do with how you were raised or things you experienced as a child that have you eating in these subconscious pattern ways. So it's really great to be able to get an awareness around it so you can release it and create new ones. We're also going to go over shift, so how to create lasting change and good habits for yourself. Subconscious reprogramming, this is by far the most powerful tool for any kind of emotional healing, is letting go of your past beliefs, bringing awareness to them, pulling out your commands, and letting go of any of that sadness that's trapped within your body. I talked a little earlier about understanding your hunger and your cravings. So there's something that's called visceral intelligence, understanding like what's an emotional sign of hunger and what's a physical sign of hunger. How do you know when your body's actually full? How do you know when you've had enough so that you're not completely reliant on these food trackers, these meal plans, everything like that? Your body will tell you. It has an innate wisdom in there. We just got to learn how to listen. It speaks a different language. We just got to know how to interpret. So you actually can totally get to that point, and I can teach you. We'll also go over your values, your commitment, and alignment because it's different for everybody. Managing anxiety, your emotional IQ, and self-empowerment. So how to take our power back around food. The last but not least thing, if you're watching this live, you're in the Facebook group already. But for those of you watching the replay, we have an amazing Facebook group. This is members only, where we set goals, we celebrate our wins, we have live Q&A, accountability, affirmations, and sisterhood. So this is a little preview. I blocked out some names from people who didn't give me permission. But this is everyone going through their journeys together and just sharing where they're at and being super honest with each other. So these are some of my favorite little members here. All that being said, the choice is yours, sister. Which route do you want to go down? I'm here for you if you're finally ready to experience food freedom, to stop the food obsessions, and to finally love and enjoy your life. So if you're watching this live in the Facebook group and you want to join the program, go ahead and comment in the box below or shoot me a direct message. If you're watching this later as a rerun, you're going to press the button below to get involved. Now, I do want to say that I keep these groups very close-knit because I think to have these emotional breakthroughs, you need enough time with your coach to have these powerful breakthroughs and this emotional healing. And I care very deeply about creating that space for my clients. So if you do want to get involved, please let me know ASAP, because once the round is closed, it is closed and it doesn't open again until I complete the course with these women. So if you're ready to get involved, if you're ready to have food freedom, if you're ready to open up all that mental capacity for yourself, stop the emotional eating, feel happy with yourself, let go of anxiety, let go of stress, and just totally reset your mind and write a new story for your life, girlfriend, you know what to do. Hit the button below. If you have any questions, please message me in the Facebook group. I'm so more than happy to answer those questions for you, and I hope to see you in the course.